everybody, you are listening to the History Boys. As always, I am Christopher Whedon, and that is, as they say, the same as it ever was. Much like Talking Heads, which are referenced immediately before the recording. That's going to be cut out. But now you guys know that we referenced Talking Heads seconds before we got into the podcast.
And this talking head
David Byrne.
is Tyler Armentrout, History Boy. Here once again to bring the good news about a supplement that I've been using. It's it's a pill that you take. It makes your voice 2 octaves. Or wait, no, not octaves. It makes sure it's 200 decibels higher.
Yeah,
actually.
It makes your voice very loud. It's like it's like The Boys. It's like Temp V, except you only makes you loud. Is that a spoiler if you haven't seen the new season? Fuck, I don't care. Shit.
Yeah, who cares?
There's a loud guy in there.
No.
There's loud man.
There's a loud guy in the new Doctor Strange.
There's quiet man. There's loud man.
He's so loud that he
explodes his own head.
He explodes his own head. Doesn't he also kill doesn't he also kill another guy? Or he kills Thanos. He shouts at Thanos so hard that all of his skin flies off in another dimension.
Yeah, and it shows
That's
it. It shows all of it.
ridiculous.
It's gruesome.
Yeah.
It's just, you see in slow motion the skin and guts fly off of his skeletal frame.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much half the movie. It's fucking weird. Doctor Strange. Maybe I saw a different movie. I don't know.
Well, it goes on so long that the skin, when it's down to the bones just spell out the end with a question mark.
If this actually happened in the movie, I would probably watch it.
Yeah, none of that.
It doesn't. It doesn't happen.
That sucks.
It doesn't happen
first
because they don't let me direct Marvel movies.
Yeah.
I had a dream that you directed Doctor Strange too. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
I
Did
remember.
it have the bones at the end?
I brought it up. I brought it up on one of our Patreon shows. But fans at home, I had a dream that I didn't see Doctor Strange 2 in the theater. That is true. That's not the dream. I got COVID. I had tickets, and then I didn't see it. Then I eventually just saw it when it was on Disney+. Before that, I had a dream that I watched it, and I hated it. And then I go tell Tyler, I saw Doctor Strange 2, and I hated it. He goes, oh, really? Because I directed it. And I was like, what? And I felt really bad that I said I hated it. And that was the dream.
Yeah.
If you hated my one shot at making like a $200 million movie, I'd be like, that's fair. I don't think I'd use that money.
To be honest, if I'd known Tyler had done it, I would have been pretty impressed.
Yeah.
I thought it was Sam Raimi.
For you, that's amazing.
I just wouldn't have watched it.
Yeah.
Oh, my friend Tyler directed a $200 million movie.
Yeah. Good for him.
What if I told you
I'm
that
happy for him.
that I changed Doctor Strange's first name to Jerry?
I'd probably tell you I bought tickets, and I'd be like, I didn't buy tickets.
Yeah.
You're like, I keep getting COVID right before.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point I got to go to like the Dollar Theater and like watch it just to be like, oh, thank God, he's been badgering me all day.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am Jerry Nash, your humble history boy. As always, thank you so much for listening. Today we have part 3, the final chapter of Boss Tweed.
Yeah.
William M. Tweed.
No relation to Nightmare on Elm Street. I believe it's 5, the final chapter.
No.
And in the case of this, it actually is the final chapter for this story, for our version of it at least. And
we're gonna do a new nightmare
sequels.
situation where the ghost of Tweed is manifested by us making a movie about him, and he comes around killing us.
Yep.
That sounds great.
It's like meta on top of meta.
Yeah.
It's because it's also referencing a movie.
That is referencing a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. New York was becoming a world-class metropolis. All this new stuff was being built. Its population was skyrocketing. It was on the same level now as London or Paris, the great metropolises of the world. It had a high concentration of wealth and a high concentration of poverty. The new rich seemed to be the worst people that rose to the top.
Yeah, that sounds
And,
right.
changes.
Yes, indeed. And the divisions of Protestant English and Northern Irish and Catholic Irish were as deep as they ever were. What happens is there was an Orange Day parade Orange Day basically is for Protestants to celebrate the time that they won against the Catholic Irish, right? It's a story for a different day. Anyway, they didn't want it to happen. They let it happen. It turned into a riot. People died. People were killed on the street. And it was a whole thing. A lot of people were blamed for it, but there was a man there who was a National Guardsman who saw it all and may have even fired bullets into the crowd. And that man's name was Thomas Nast.
The cartoonist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And marksman.
Yeah, I guess. It's like that time Bill Watterson fired a gun into a crowd.
He was at the Capitol on January 6th.
Is that true?
No. If he was, the thing is, if he was, I don't know what he looks like.
Calvin and Hobbes guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that guy has disappeared. He could have been there on January 6th.
Yeah. He would be the MAGA shaman for all I know.
Yeah. The guy who writes Dilbert certainly went that way.
Yeah, definitely. Now, in the meantime, Boss Tweed's daughter was being married. And so they threw this lavish wedding, huge lavish wedding at the Trinity Church in New York. Trinity's that beautiful church. You know the one I'm talking about, right? With the
it's in the Spider-Man games.
Yeah, yeah. And same guy that designed that church also designed Blackwell's, right?
Oh. I thought you were going to say designed the Spider-Man game.
And the Spider-Man game, yeah. I just finished Miles Morales, by the way. It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it.
It's a good game.
Yeah. Yeah, you really get to sling around New York. I really enjoyed that.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, all of New York's, glitterati was there, and, there was champagne, all this crazy stuff, Everyone's just looking at this and they're just being like, something is going on here. You're stealing money and you're being like, you're flaunting it. You know what I mean? You don't even have the decency to do it in secret. You know what I mean? Like, he's out there with his diamond pins and stuff, And
he's like, I promise you, I'm spending all the money I have and I'm going to be so poor after this.
Yeah,
I don't even know why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Just like the blatantly, constantly ripping and unapologetically ripping everybody off. Just it reminds me so much. Reminds me so much of Donald Trump. I don't even think to make the reference anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be other things in here that'll sound familiar to you, but like for now, it didn't really seem like anyone was getting hurt. You know what I mean? Like there was a whitewash committee that was like, somebody look at their books, right? And the newspapers called it a whitewash committee because it was all the city's blue bloods. Like they got together, like John Jacob Astor the third, Moses Taylor, Marshall O'Brooks, who among other things owned the New York Sun. So yeah, they got together and they looked at the books and they were like, it's A-okay.
Yeah, they were stroking their beards and clucking their tongues and wondering what to do with this William Tweed.
Yes, exactly.
I'd like to think that the authorities were like, so did you look at their books? They're like, yeah, we looked at their hats. Like, you mean books? Yeah, the books were shiny. I mean, everything's in line. Everything's in line.
Everything's fine.
But really, they're all part of the Shiny Hat Club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the Shiny Hat Brigade. And
they're shining like the sun.
Yeah, the New York Sun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. Wearing disco balls on their head and shit.
Yeah, but they just had the city had a peaceful election, finally. Like the first one in a long time. And like Tammany was totally controlling it, considering that they got this clean bill of health. New York Times was like, you guys looked at it for 2 seconds and gave it a clean bill of health, and the peaceful election, Tammany really looked vindicated. You know what I mean? They were like, so there, A, it's good that we're in control, and B, nothing bad is happening,
Yeah, because we all made it legal anyway.
Yeah. The Brooklyn Bridge begins. With Tweed money, by the way. Parts of Central Park with Tweed money. That county courthouse, which was, Tweed's baby, was being built for an extremely long time and going way far over budget. And people were like, what is in this place? And yeah, it was gorgeous, frescoes and stuff on the walls and stuff. But what the blue bloods of the city, they turned the other way, you know what I mean? Because at the same time, property values were skyrocketing. So they were like, oh shit,
everybody's making money. They're like, come on, Tweed, build more shit and make more painters go blind from painting the ceilings with fresco.
Do you
give them the old Michelangelo, and we all get rich.
Yeah.
Just gonna paint a bunch of guys with their dicks out, though.
Yeah.
So I didn't go blind from painting the dicks. I went blind from the paint going in my eyes and plaster going in my eyes.
Dripping in my eyes. It's right above me, It's gravity. What am I supposed to do?
Everybody really, except for Tilden, right? He had his ambitions of his own, maybe the presidency one of these days.
Mm-hmm.
Going on at this time, we talked about this last episode, these cartoons that Thomas Nast was drawing for Harper's Weekly, they didn't really start to depict Tweed until now, and Tweed was kind of one of the easiest ones to draw,
Mm-hmm.
You can draw a circle, you can draw a Tweed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's mean.
Yeah.
He was depicting him as a giant monster, like eating the city.
Cool.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, like we'll post some of the cartoons in the Discord. The Tammany tiger, he's the one that associated like the tiger from the fire truck, to Tammany because of Tweed. And the thing is about Thomas Nast is he's incredibly interesting, and I think he honestly deserves his own episode because he had like a whole other life before this. He had a life after this. We just know him from this part, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really going to go into his whole story in this episode, but once he started depicting Tweed and stuff, like, I mean, that Harper's Weekly was like turning into like a global magazine. People as far away as France and Spain and whatnot, Italy, all across Europe are getting copies of Harper's Weekly.
Like you said, New York's like on the map now. Big businesses, they're like, add the New York clock next to the Tokyo and the London clock,
Right, right, exactly.
That's what businesses did back then if they were
Yeah. And the thing was about Thomas Nast is like he actually grew up like he was German born, but he grew up in New York, and he actually grew up watching Tweed and the fire brigade, like the kids would gather around and watch those fire brigades and stuff. So it's weird that he sort of how this all sort of played out, you know what I mean? That he ended up going after him. And like Tweed has this, famous quote. He says, "I don't care a straw for your newspaper articles. My constituents don't know how to read, but they can't help seeing them damned pictures."
I like that he's like, I can say that because they're not going to be able to read it.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't recording sound bites yet.
No,
that wasn't really a thing yet. So you had to be able to put it in writing. And if your constituency's illiterate, then bada bing.
Yeah, exactly. Oakey Hall called Thomas Nast nasty.
Nice.
It's pretty good, pretty clever.
Yeah. Spinning his cane like reggae.
Elegant Oakey over here.
Yeah.
Got him fucking good.
Yeah. Like, it's the middle of May. Stop dressing like a leprechaun.
And he actually tried to get Harpers banned from city newspaper stands. People still wanted to buy those because they passed them around and stuff, and they laughed at them.
That's how it works.
Funny. Yeah, and there was one that really pissed Tweed off, and it was a picture of Manhattan Island with Tweed's thumb on it. This giant thumb, and there was like a cufflink that said, WM Tweed, right? And it said underneath it said, "What are you gonna do about it?"
Oh, that's good.
He has a few quotes actually that are erroneously attributed to him. Yeah, let me just read you. He has one that it gets thrown around as one of his quotes. Honestly, I really can't find solid proof for it, and it gets attributed to a lot of people. But it's the "I don't care who does the electing, so long as I get to do the nominating," or there's a lot of variations of that.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really, really wanted the quote to be, "I don't care who does the electing as long as I get to do the erecting," and it was about his penis.
It wouldn't have been that.
It would have been a weird quote.
It would have been, yes. a big part of Harper's business was textbooks. So they were going to try to get their contract eliminated or whatever for the textbooks and, ruin that part of Harper's business. And they would take new textbooks that were printed at the New York Printing Company that was owned by Tweed. Yeah, and they were feeling the pressure, the Times and Harper's, like the Times thought that Tweed might buy all of, like controlling shares in the Times and then shut them down,
Is there no rules against that?
No, there's no rules against that. No. I mean, you just buy controlling, shares in a company and then fire a bunch of people. I mean, that's what, Elon Musk and Twitter, that's what people
that's what
were
I was
afraid
thinking, exactly.
of them doing. Is that, you'd buy it and then change things about it, right? You'd have a new editor that's friendly with Tweed, right? There is a legend that while in Central Park on their carriages, they actually passed each other. Thomas Nast and William Tweed actually passed each other. And they, Tweed only, nodded at him. And that was it,
It's like that. It's like that meme from Umbrella Academy. You know what I'm talking about? Where they're both in the cars.
Yeah.
I've never seen Umbrella Academy, but I know it's from that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's like Lisa or Maggie and the baby with the unibrow.
Oh yeah,
yes,
that's even better because you bring it back to the Simpsons.
Simpsons reference.
I actually watched the Stonecutters episode because of all this talk we've had. And it's great.
That's a good episode.
It's weird going back and watching that episode because I did too pretty recently, and by recently I mean like the last 5 years, and both the political leanings of the writers and the national kind of vibe towards the Republican Party at the time is like fully on display in that episode.
Oh yeah. I like how they depict the Republican Party headquarters, and it's like this dark castle, and like with Dracula's there. Nast said that he actually was threatened by Tammany officials, which could have been just muscle hired to go tell him to knock it off.
Definitely not surprising.
Yeah, he also said that he was offered bribes, and like the story is actually pretty funny. I'm not gonna get super into it. Story for a different day, but Nast kind of like plays along, and he's like, "Oh, do you think I could get $400,000?" And they're like, "Yeah, probably," But yeah, like people followed him home. George Jones, the guy that owned the New York Times, he said that people were following him home. It was getting kind of dark for those guys. But let's also not forget, that Thomas Nast, he was a man of his time with a certain political leaning. He was very xenophobic. He was anti-Irish and certainly anti-Catholic, and not anti-Catholic in the way that I think I'm anti-Catholic. Anti-Catholic in that he thought that it made people like dirty and immoral, right? And poor and immoral, right? And stupid. I don't believe that. I just don't like religious institutions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's something to remember when we talk about Thomas Nast. Remember Jimmy O'Brien? He was that sheriff, right?
Yeah.
Sort of, he got suckered out of some graft.
Yeah, he was like,
I was gonna say when they were offering the bribe to Nast, were they like, just take it out of what we were gonna give him?
Right.
Screw O'Brien even harder.
Yeah. Well, O'Brien, he was like even when he was totally getting screwed, he was like, I don't have anything against Tweed personally. Like even like Tweed himself like was quoted as saying like, Jimmy, I love you like a son. You know what I mean? And like. He like early in his career, like he did time in Blackwell's, and like when he got out, he got in good with Tweed, and like all the good things that had happened in his life were because of Tweed, So
he just wanted to take a step further and get a piece of the pie. That's all.
Yeah. He just wanted a piece of the pie.
He's like, I don't blame him one bit for what he's doing. I want to do that.
Yeah, and he, after the little, rebellion of his young Democrats and whatnot, he found out that Tammany just had no place. For traders, even if they went back and groveled to them, and professed loyalty to Oki and whatnot, they didn't let him back in.
And pledge allegiance to Oki.
Yeah. And kind of while this is going on, Jimmy O'Brien's buddy, Bill Copeland, he got a job in the controller's office in Slippery Dick Connolly's office as an accountant. And it was the only patronage job that Jimmy O'Brien ever got for anybody. You know, he got one person, one job.
That's kind of cute, though.
It is.
He's like,
and
give my friend a job.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Bill Copeland didn't really know anyone there, so he didn't really want to like talk with anyone there. So whenever he, you know, he would talk to Jimmy a lot, and there's this time where he was like going through and he was like, this doesn't look right to me. Like, these numbers do not look right. These, in fact, they look pretty alarming. And so he showed Jimmy O'Brien like numbers from the controller's office that show like thousands of dollars in, you know, thermometers and like chairs, you know, and like rugs and carpet, you know, that could go around the block, you know, several times around the block, you know.
O'Brien's like, no, why'd I hire my friend who's an accountant?
well, Jimmy O'Brien, he saw it as an opportunity. He's like, no shit. So they're really fucking like this with the city's books. And so like Bill Copeland copied a bunch of pages out of like the controller's ledgers and gave them to Jimmy O'Brien. And Jimmy O'Brien, he tries to blackmail Tammany Hall with this information to get his $300,000 in graft, right? They tell him to fuck off, you know? Pretty much at first. Until he says he has ledgers, you know. He has pages from the ledgers.
They're like, may I see the pages? And may I read them next to this fireplace?
Yeah, right? Well, they were supposed to meet up with Watson. And Watson was their, like, chief accountant, right? The one that they paid to stay quiet. So, like, Jimmy O'Brien was going to meet up with Watson, and they were going to hash out, like, a backroom backslapping, you know, deal on you. I will stay quiet. You give me a bunch of money, and we'll call it good. Well, what happened was it was in the winter, and Watson was on a sled pulled by horses, and in this freak accident, they ran into another sled, and Watson died.
Oh my god!
Oh no!
And now they don't know, like, you know, like the whole Tweed ring is like, fuck. You know, and the whole deal with Jimmy O'Brien is now kaput. Jimmy O'Brien thinks that they didn't show up. So now he's like, fuck you. I got these ledger papers now. I'm going to do something, you know, I'm going to do something with these. You know, and they're like,
that's disappointing.
Fuck.
I thought that Watson, and then if the other sled was just full of like machine parts and they crashed together and made the world's first computer, I'd be like, now we're talking.
RoboCop.
And, Robo accountant.
And it's Watson from like the AI computer, right? Wasn't that like a thing?
Did he win Jeopardy or did he host Jeopardy?
I think he won Jeopardy, and like chess at some point.
Yeah, we got way better computers than that now.
Yeah,
they can make your face look like a old person or whatever.
Yeah, they can draw funny pictures.
Yeah.
Well, so it was the summer of 1871, right? Is how long? This is how long like they had to stew on like getting a new accountant and seeing if he was right for like taking the bribes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
we need somebody real shady.
Yeah, Jimmy O'Brien sat on these ledger papers for a while. Like, he gave them to copy to a judge, put another in a safe, and like he's trying to figure out what to do with them. And cut to basically the Times office, the New York Times office, and who other, you know, none other than fucking Jimmy O'Brien walks in, and like right up to like George Jones, and they're like, they you know, they know he's a part of the Tweed deal, and Jimmy O'Brien goes, so I heard you had a hard time taking that Tweed down. And George Jones is like, yeah, we're having a really difficult time, actually.
It's a bit of a mess.
And Jimmy O'Brien goes, I said had. And then he slaps the papers down on his desk, and he leaves.
Like,
He just walks right out. And they're looking through it, you know, and they're like, holy shit, these are pages right out of the controller's office, you know, and like they pour over them and they're like, oh my god, like how much for brooms, how much for chairs, you know, how much for all this stuff? This is insane.
So this is real smoke and gun at this point.
And like plasterers are being paid so much money, you know what I mean?
It's gonna be like the Panama Papers 100 years from now, or 90 years from now, or 85. Anyway, in the future, only this time people are going to actually care. Yeah, and they're not just going to be like, all these people are using tax havens. Let's all move on.
It hasn't changed a whole lot. It hasn't changed a whole lot.
Jackie Chan's a white collar criminal, but I love his stunts, so he gets a pass.
Yeah.
Shanghai Nights?
Shanghai Noon. Yeah. Shanghai Noon, Shanghai
I went with the sequel.
I actually like Shanghai Nights more.
I do too.
All right.
I do too.
Now, at this, when you know, the Times started publishing all this stuff, the only person in town, like everyone was off on the summer homes, you know, the only person that was actually in town was Okie Hall. Right, so he was the only one that had to like face reporters and all this stuff.
Everything's falling on old Okie.
Yeah. So he of course denied having anything to do with this. Not that it wasn't happening, but that he had anything to do with it. He was like, I'm a victim of fraud here, guys. You know? He thought it would blow over, too. This will all just blow over, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, my nickname's Elegant, not Corrupt.
Right.
I rest my case.
Yeah.
Also, I've never heard of a Boss Tweed. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Boss who? Boss?
Boss. Yeah. Bruce Springsteen?
The boss?
He wanted to actually evict the New York Times because he had found out that the land that they were on used to belong to the city, and he was going to try to make a case that it was an unlawful purchase, so they were going to evict the New York Times, you know, just to get them out of there.
They're pulling out all the stops.
Yeah, didn't work.
It's very American.
He was also going to try to sue the New York Times for libel, because there weren't a lot of protections for journalists in this day. A lot of newsmen went to jail over libel. That happened all the time, and it was easy to go to jail for that.
I just imagine all this press like up their ass, and the next thing you know, Daredevil's like coming down on them.
Oh yeah, thumping them.
It's just way Kingpin, you know.
Oh yeah.
The Daily Bugle has got a story that'll blow this whole Kingpin situation wide open.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I think this story just goes to show you that the pen is truly mightier than the sword on account of all the spreadsheets as well as the cartoons.
Yeah,
right,
I do think that the Daily Bugle is more like the New York Sun.
Yeah,
you know.
Okay, a little bit more of a rag.
Yeah,
it's a total rag.
Now, this is something I forgot to mention. Okie Hall, he studied under a man named John Slidell. That was like his first law practice that he worked under. John Slidell's older brother, his name was Alexander Slidell Mackenzie, and his son was named Ranald Slidell Mackenzie, who fought Quanah Parker.
Whoa.
Really weird connection there, right?
That is weird.
Okie Hall to Ranald Slidell Mackenzie and
that's got to be a real one-upsman's family reunion, you know?
Yeah. They have Supreme Court justices in their family too.
Yeah.
Well, there's just so many fewer people back then, so there was more room for just regular people.
Concentrated. It was concentrated, you know. Concentrated power.
Yeah, apparently this year we're supposed to hit 8 billion people, which is crazy.
Oh yeah.
It's a crazy amount of people for anywhere, let alone Earth.
That's too many people for one Earth.
Too many.
Well,
need a second. We got to build another one.
Yeah.
you guys can cut this, Chris, but you know, COVID's like, I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. I even got monkeypox with me now.
Yeah. The odd thing is, this is kind of why I think Horace Greeley is just intensely interesting. He was oddly against the New York Times publishing this stuff. He was like, that is city material and you shouldn't be publishing this stuff. And it's like, okay, dude, whatever.
I think it's newsworthy.
Yeah, I think so too.
You don't want to cause a panic.
Yeah. Slippery Dick, Richard Connolly, is immediately asked to resign by Okie Hall. He points the finger at the controller's office, of course, because it's like, well, how dare you even let them make off with your ledgers? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What are you running down there? You know?
I'm surprised he kept his job that long. You know?
Yeah. Well, remember, the mayor can't fire him because of Tweed's home rule bill, right?
Yeah.
He can't touch him. So he has to resign.
Yeah.
Or else it's this long thing to impeach him.
I didn't know that Okie Hall had the dexterity to point a finger and also pass the buck at the same time.
Yeah, right?
What a fucking turd.
Yeah. Dick Connolly also refuses to admit that anything is wrong, but he was also at the same time refusing another audit on his own office. He was like, no, I'll have the numbers for you very soon. You know, and like the law said in the past 2 years that he had to turn in numbers, and he never did. You know, he just didn't do it.
That sounds really familiar. Somebody drastically trying to not have something, investigated while also saying that, there's nothing wrong there. Nothing wrong happened. It's like, well, then investigate it.
And of course, there was an investigation, right? Judge Bernard, who's actually a Tweed ally. They get Judge Bernard to issue an injunction to basically stop the controller's office. Anything moving in or out of the controller's office is to be stopped while they do an investigation, right? Mm-hmm. And that means everything. So like the regular working man on the street that's employed by the city, he doesn't get paid until this shit is over with.
Oh, that sucks.
So yeah, it's fucking with people. You know what I mean? Basically, the person that they got to lead this investigation was, of course, Sam Tilden.
Yeah.
You know, of course it's him, right? Connolly doesn't know what to do. He goes to friends and asks them, should I resign? Should I not? And his, one of his buddies is like, if you're guilty, you should resign. If you're innocent, you should resign. But one thing's for sure, you need a good lawyer. In fact, you need the best lawyer. And you know who the best lawyer in New York City is, right?
Johnny Cochran.
Sam Tilden.
Oh, yes.
And so he goes to Sam Tilden, and he's like, will you be my lawyer? Will you represent me? And Sam Tilden's like, are you fucking kidding me? No. And then he's like, no, wait a minute. This is actually great. He's like, everyone wants you to resign. But there's this clause in Tweed's home rule bill that says if you're away sick or out of the country, then you can have somebody take your place. And that's what we'll do. We'll have somebody that's my friend take your place so we can conduct this investigation and get the ball rolling. So that's what they do. Like, he totally cooperates with them.
So does he go on vacation?
No. But basically, he just says he's not working there, but he's not resigned his post, right? So he can it's this gray area, right?
Yeah. It's like, I found a gray area and I'm just gonna... I'm just gonna weasel into there.
Yeah, exactly.
This is straight up Boris Johnson shit.
It is, man. It is some weaselly shit.
He's like, I'm resigning, but I'm not going anywhere for the time being. And everyone's like, well, you're still there. He's like, no, I resigned.
But it's not my job.
Still running things.
Yeah.
He resigned because I kept making those AI pictures of him, eating intestines and eating out of the garbage and flying a kite at night.
Fish heads, eating fish heads.
All those people doing that.
I had a whole series of Boris Johnson pictures.
I like when the first time you referred to it as a series, it made me laugh.
This is from my Boris Johnson series.
As if you're some sort of artist.
Yeah, like fucking Picasso.
You're like, and then I took a break to go back to my Beerus and Wheeze series.
Yes. Yes.
So something that they found out instantly was that the city had $2.7 million in interest that was coming up in just a couple of months. And because everything was on bonds, they didn't have enough money on hand to pay the interest.
So
they could totally default on their loans in a couple of months, which caused Wall Street to freak out. People in Europe straight up banned having New York bonds sold in their stock markets. And like, they were like, you better figure this shit out. You better figure it out fast, because this is going to ruin our city if not, you know.
Remember back when they were still super rich, just taking 15% off the top and nobody cared?
Yeah, right. They could have just done that. And they could have done that. Yeah.
They had more money than they can even fucking spend, I imagine.
Oh yeah. Way too much money. Think about it. They had tens of millions of dollars back then.
And that was before you could go to space if you're a billionaire.
It's billions now.
Yeah.
Now,
the best they had was a catapult. Motherfuckers got greedy, started thinking about that metal Mario hat, and were like, but what if I had a chrome hat?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I'm still on the shiny hat brigade.
The shiny hat thing that's a comedy gold mine that I feel like we haven't quite tapped yet.
Oh yeah.
But what about my hat? The funny thing is that it was an election year. Even with all this stuff going on, in November of 1871, Tweed was still elected. You know what I mean? Like, his friends didn't totally abandon him. He was still loved by, like, the poor and quote-unquote lower class of the city. And, like, when he held rallies, they were huge, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And he still held them. And of course, he blamed the media, you know? He blamed the newspapers for publishing, quote, false material.
Oh, weird.
Does that sound
this
a
whole thing
familiar?
sounds fucking...
Holding,
this
like,
whole thing
nighttime
about
rallies.
Donald Trump.
I will say false material isn't nearly as catchy as fake news.
Yeah.
I know. Now, to be fair, though, no one's ever actually tied all of this 100% to Tweed. No one, to this day even, has actually any proof that it does all go to Tweed. Or, you know, he gets a big piece of this. There's no actual proof of that.
It's probably by design.
There's no proof that he's directly connected, but everybody in his orbit is corrupt, and it points directly to him.
Well, let's get into this. Okay, so we'll get in when we start talking about these cases and stuff, because of course people are about to be sued here, and they're about to go on trial, right? And everyone knew that. Peter B. Sweeney, the brains of the operation, he knew that. So he fled to Canada, and then Paris. And you know what he did?
Peter B. leaving.
Yeah. And you know what he did before then? He moved all of his money to his brother. So there you go.
Well,
it's like, it's not my money, it's my brother's money.
Exactly.
Like, well, where did he get it from? He got it from me. Where did you get it from?
Oh, this
is not important. It's not my money. It's my brother's money.
Yeah. Now, to make shit worse, Connolly's office was broken into while the investigation was going. Certain key documents were stolen, and, like, you know, the window was cut out with a diamond, and, like, you know, the newspapers were like, a diamond, huh? Like Tweed's diamond, you know?
Oh,
and,
come
like,
on.
just enough for a guy to, like, get in and, like, open the door, and, like, these key... They would issue these, like, tickets, right? And you'd take them to the controller's office, and then they'd issue a check, right? So if you were a contractor, you'd have these tickets. Anyway, a handful of these tickets were gone, right? The weird part about it is that if you knew the controller's office, you would know that they have, like, master copies, and they're easily replicated. So it's weird that they would take that and nothing else.
You know what it was?
It's a botch job, is what it was.
I like to imagine it was a world famous diamond thief, gentleman thief. You know, kind of elder. You know, an older man. He's been in the business for a long time. He stole that diamond thing is his calling card. And he was pretty fucking pissed that everybody thought it was about Tweed. Yeah. He went in there because he had heard there's a big ass diamond. Just found these fucking tickets and was like, "What the fuck? I'll just grab these, I guess. Fuck it."
But they had, like, money there. They had other shit there. It's weird that they only took these
he only wants the diamond
tickets. Yeah.
He's a diamond thief, Jerry.
Now,
it's like Pink Panther.
Yeah.
He's
well, I was gonna say that, you know, everyone went crazy about who did this, right? And a lot of people pointed to Connolly or other people in the Tweed ring, you know. But eventually,
who has diamonds? These guys probably have diamonds, and they're the only people who could do. Because everyone knows when you got diamonds can cut. I'm working real hard on the logic here. It's like,
it was Blackwell.
Meanwhile, Chris is like the gentleman thief, Diamond Jack. I feel like I could do better than that. Diamond. He's like
Diamond Joe.
Diamond Joe.
Diamond Joe
Quimby. Yeah,
yeah, he did it.
Walked right into it.
Mayor Quimby.
Yeah.
Which is funny because he is a corrupt political official.
Yeah, so. He is. Yeah.
A lot of this story feels very Simpsons to me. So I feel like
it's bonkers.
Those Yale fucking students that wrote The Simpsons probably knew a lot about these stories.
Oh yeah. When they caught the guys, there was like a group of guys. They got 2 out of the 3 that witnesses said that they saw. The 2 guys said that they worked for these other 2 guys who worked for these. It was this other web, of people that, they could never actually trace it back to anyone. You know what I mean?
They're all Spartacus.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm. And Tilden, he didn't need a subpoena to like go to the bank and get like bank records from like Tweed's bank accounts and like Sweeney's bank accounts and all these things. They just gave them to him, right? And so what he found out is that there wasn't a name for it yet. But what he found and what he cross-referenced and painstakingly put together like a puzzle was money laundering. Mm-hmm. And like he published this chart in the papers saying like, see, then they moved it here, then they moved it here, then they moved it here. And Tweed is like, I gave him a loan, this isn't actually proof. And it's like, well, that's pretty good, but
yeah.
So they invented money laundering?
Well, I don't know if they invented it, but there was no name for it. And this was such a high profile case that it's sort of like, it stems from here, right? Mm-hmm. Moving money around so people can't find it.
I didn't realize they didn't have a name for that yet.
They didn't back then, no. Mm-hmm.
But he showed
fuckery. Yeah. Humbuggery. Yeah. But he showed how money was moved, into like the plasterers, right? Like Ingersoll and Garvey, these people that were hired to do all these things, And like people like Ingersoll and Garvey, they were like, I think Garvey was the one, but he was like, let's go to the courthouse. Come with me. And he's like, look at all this shit in here. They call that just plastering. He's like, dude, those frescoes and stuff is world-class shit. He's like, I did all that. I'm keeping my money. I earned my money. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But all of a sudden, this crazy like sort of bombshell thing happened, and that was the police coming into the controller's office and arresting Slippery Dick Connolly right in front of Tilden. Like Tilden was standing there, and he's like, "What? I thought I was safe because I'm with you guys, right?" Like Tilden like looks at the warrant and he goes, "Yep." And they hands it back to him, and he's like, "No," and they drag him out. And like so his wife, Mary Connolly, she actually controlled the money in the household. Mm-hmm. So when like he's like, let me post bail, I don't want to go to jail, she like comes down with like $5 million in cash, and they're like, give us some more. You gotta have more up there. And she was like, no, let him go to jail then. And he's like, no.
She's like, sorry, honey, your dick's staying bone dry tonight.
Yeah. So he spent a night in jail, posted bail, and then fucked off to Canada and then Egypt.
Oh, God.
Totally fled the country.
He's like, I'm going to get some maple syrup, and then I'm going to go see some pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that order.
In that order. Okie Hall was eventually arrested and indicted. He was acquitted, though, because no one could prove that he knowingly signed these checks and that they were fraudulent, that he knew that they were fraudulent.
He's like, I was just doing my job, passing them through.
Which is, I guess it's a good defense. I don't know. He was acquitted.
It worked.
I don't know. Now, numbers sort of vary as to exactly how much they stole, and no one really knows exactly. But the high end is $200 million, which today, again, is billions of dollars. And people back then could not even fathom that kind of money. You know what I mean? They didn't know what that kind of money looked like. They're like, how can anyone even steal that much money?
Is there even that much?
Yeah.
There's not that much money.
You can't just steal that kind of money from like the government. You know what I mean? You can't just do that and not get caught, you know, until now, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, they just thought it was a little like crazy, a little unbelievable in a lot of ways, you know? And it is unbelievable, but believe it, you know?
Yeah.
Just looking at their matte colored shoes, no reflection in them.
They're scuffy shoes.
Yeah, they're scuffy shoes and scuffy hats. Thinking about how these guys must have had to bite every single nickel to make sure that it was real, and must have taken them forever. Because, you know.
So out of the whole Tweed ring, only Tweed stayed in New York as this was all hitting the fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had a lot of backroom meetings with Sweeney and Connolly and all these people before they fled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't get anywhere, you know? And he basically told, like, reporters, like, if you want to fight, man, I'm here. And, like, he's like, you know, back in the old days, you know, he couldn't hide, you know, and if I wasn't a politician, you know, I might do something else to him, you know? And they're like, are you threatening to kill him? And he's like, no. In fact, he was like, a man cares about his family. And he repeated that like 3 times. Like, you know, like it's way like Ricardo Mandelbaum, like, a man cares about his family. A man cares about his family. You know?
Yeah. How do you threaten somebody without overtly threatening them?
Yeah, right. So he was, of course, he was arrested. They arrested him on like this whole host of charges. It was called like an omnibus charge. I'm not really a lawyer or a historical lawyer or anything like that, so I don't really know what any of this means. But basically, there was 220 charges of fraud and like abuse of power, right, that he had to answer for. And yeah, he pretty much already transferred a lot of his money and assets to his son, you know, William Jr., his wife. So they couldn't touch a lot of it, right? He wanted to make sure that they were well off. His friends did begin to abandon him. People started giving him the old cold shoulder. Tammany dumped him as their grand sachem. He had to resign a few of his posts when he was arrested, including his newly won Senate seat. His bail bondsmen, though, were some of the most powerful people in New York. People like Jay Gould and James Fisk. Remember? The railroad
magnate James Fisk.
Yeah, those two tried to corner the gold market as well before this. There were some shitheads, those two. But they put up millions of dollars for his bail so he could not be in jail before his court date. Basically, his first trial was a hung jury, ended up as a hung jury. So he got to leave for a while until there was a new trial, right? And as he left, you know, as he was sort of free to go, James Fisk was actually shot by a man over one of Jim Fisk's like ex-lovers.
Oh,
like,
what?
Like it was some like lovers.
That's some Great
twist.
Gatsby shit.
It is. Yeah. He shot James Fisk, and like that night, Boss Tweed like goes over to Fisk's place, like on his deathbed, and he's like laying there, you know. He's like, oh man, you know.
They got me, boss.
Yeah, pretty much.
They got me good.
Yeah, he's like, you've had a lot of fake friends in your life, but I've always supported you, Bill, you know. And,
and then he disappeared like Yoda.
Yeah, right. well, Tweed asked him, how are you feeling, man? And he goes, it's really funny, but he goes, you ever skip school to go eat green apples? And he's like, that's how I feel. Yeah, he's like, that's how I feel.
Yeah, man.
Like,
yeah.
When you get a bellyache from eating too many green apples, he's like, I got a bellyache. And like, he died the next day. You know what I mean?
I like to think he died while saying
he disappearing like Yoda.
I got a boomerang fast.
And then he disappeared like Yoda. and his wife was pissed because he left everything to the railroad. He's like, I left all my worldly possessions to the thing I love the most, the railroad.
Yeah. Yoda did that too, and Yoda's wife was pissed. He actually had a lot saved up.
Yeah.
I mean, rent was pretty goddamn cheap in that little, like, fucking tiny hut in Dagobah that he had.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't hiding from the Empire. He was hiding from his wife.
Yeah, his landlord was an asshole, though.
So. His landlord was an asshole. There's that, like, snake thing under the water that tried to eat R2-D2. Yeah. It's all there in the movie.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was going to... Can you blame him? He had an X-wing out front on, like, cinder blocks. But that wasn't...
It was in the swamp, which is the swamp equivalent.
He lifted him out.
I wish he had a mullet now.
Yeah.
And like a cut off shirt. Yeah, it's like a Molly Hatchet tour shirt or something.
And he's listening to what was it?
Foghat.
Foghat, yes. Yeah. He's that guy.
Slow Ride. Yeah. Smoking doobs and lifting weights in his garage.
Yeah, Yoda. Isn't this all from Eric the Red?
So he's Eric the Red, yeah.
This is from the Eric the Red one.
It is, yeah.
I love that episode. With the image we painted of Eric the Red was so funny.
Yeah. And he went to Chicago, he went to Boston, he went to California, he went to Canada, and people were like, there he goes, he's leaving. But no, he came back. He came back to New York and stood a second trial.
He wanted to think he was leaving.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, am I flight risk? Oh, am I leaving? Oh,
flight
risk. I'm back.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that each of those places he went, he was like, can I corruptly run your town? And they're like, no, get out of here, Tweed. And he's like, all right, I'm going to go to the next place. And he's like, guys, I really need the money. Can I run your town? I promise I won't be corrupt this time.
They're like, we've all seen the cartoons.
It's like, Nast.
Yeah, I know, right? Everywhere he went, he couldn't find another place. Unlike like Wyatt Earp, where like if you're just not well known, it's fine if you keep going. Well, this time, Judge Noah Davis, and I say that not only because he was the judge during this case, but his great-great-great-grandchild just followed us on Twitter.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Judge Noah Davis's descendant. So yeah, Judge Noah Davis threw the book at him. He was convicted on 204 counts of fraud, which they kind of had to, again, it's complicated legal stuff, but basically was charged individually for each one and not like all at once. Even though they were all misdemeanors, it added up to in like the quick math that Judge Noah Davis came up with, it came up to 12 years and like a fine, right?
Okay.
But 12 years, damn, you know what I mean?
Yeah, going from diamond cufflinks to 12 years in prison is, as a person who doesn't have diamond cufflinks, it makes me feel really good. And it makes me feel like the system works, although the wheels of justice do turn slowly, and more slowly every day. One other thing I wanted to mention is when you were like, no, Davis is like great, I thought you were going to say, is creator of Garfield Jim Davis.
That would have been great, though. No.
But then having somebody who's like, the descendant of somebody who's like part of the story and, connected really through real history is very exciting.
It's really cool.
I just wish I hadn't raised my expectations to the creator of Garfield being connected to the story.
We've mentioned a lot of cartoonists in this one.
Yeah, we have, actually.
We got Dilbert. We got fucking the Calvin and Hobbes guy who was at January 6th. Prove me wrong, Watterson. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, we talk a lot about cartoonists here on this show.
That's true.
And not only, to sort of add insult to injury, I guess, I would consider, they didn't consider it a state problem. They considered it very much a New York City problem.
It was like, you wanted it to be able to be done in New York.
Yeah. Well, that means that Tweed would not go to the state prison at Sing Sing. He would go to the city prison on Blackwell's Island.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So, such an I know we said it a lot, but that's such an ominous name.
It is, and it's so like quintessential spooky, place. And keep in mind. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong. So when Blackwell shut down, would it be San Quentin that took over for it?
Well, San Quentin is in California.
Oh, oops. Yep, you're right.
Sing Sing is the state prison. No, you're thinking of
Rikers?
Rikers Island. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Rikers.
So much better than Blackwell. So much better.
Not really.
I knew Sing Sing from cartoons when I was a kid, so it all comes back to cartoons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, remember, they had the poorhouse, they have the almshouse, the place for the lunatics asylum, and the hospital and the prison, right? And then the workhouse, right? All this on this little strip of island here. He went to the prison, and remember that prisoners were expected to have jobs, right? You either did hard labor, you worked in the hospital, or you worked in the lunatic asylum, right? And because it's Tweed, he got, after only spending like 2 days in a normal cell, which almost killed him, he got a job in the hospital, sort of being basically a nurse in the hospital, looking after, bandages and making things happen on time, that type of thing. Got a better room with better food.
He's like, how do I make this corrupt and enrich myself in the process?
Well, people loved hearing his stories. I wonder if he talked about that type of stuff. You know what I mean? But everyone really liked him. Remember, he's a really nice, friendly, personable person. People get along with him very easily. Yeah, he made friends on the inside, They let him have his own stove in his room, He got treated much better than others. He had a room with a window. It was a broken window that they fixed for him. He had a few amenities.
Like, you gotta fix this. I can't have a broken window in my cell.
Yeah, he had more visitors than what was normally allowed.
His wife shows up. She's like, "Honey, have you been doing? Have you been doing in here?" He's like, "I've been doing great. I've been making lots of friends." And she's like, "What kind of friends?" Cuts to him with a shaved head and a copy of the Quran. He's like, "Just friends, lots of friends."
Well, the first thing they do when you go in Blackwell's is shave your head and your beard. So that is what happened to him. They shaved his head.
I was doing a skinhead thing.
No, it's like a try to keep lice off of you thing.
The delousing.
Yeah.
Did they hose him down?
I don't know if they hosed him down. Probably not. They probably spared him some of the stuff.
They threw powdered sugar at him. It was delicious.
Is that what you think they're doing in there?
No, there's in Super Troopers. They're hitting Farva with you think it's delousing, and he's like, why are you doing this? And fucking Brian Cox is like, we're delousing you, and he's like, it's powdered sugar. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, news is continuing. The boss is keeping up with the news. He sees that Greeley is defeated and dies. Greeley, people try to connect him with Boss Tweed, and he's like, I was never with Boss Tweed. And they're like, yeah, you were, dude. And he got hosed.
The delousing,
Yeah.
They all got deloused.
Tilden had a new sort of competitor with Tammany called the Apollo Club.
Oh.
And they were the
But you get some pretty good stand up there.
Yeah, they were.
They were.
Yeah, I do. They were they were like the reform wing of the Democratic Party, right? Like Horace Greeley had the liberal Republicans, right, that didn't like all the corruption in Ulysses Grant's presidency, and then you had Tilden, who didn't like the Tammany corruption on the Democratic side, right?
It was all about which corruption did you not care for.
Yeah,
exactly.
This corruption
different flavors of fucked.
Yeah, which is funny because Rhett Hayes would be like the Republican reformer against Tilden, the Democratic reformer, and it's like, but the Apollo Club kicked Tammany's ass that year. They got all the positions. Tilden became governor. And like Tweed's like, fuck it, figures. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that Tilden did is he asked Ingersoll, like Ingersoll went to court, you know, this is like one of the plasterers, and they did convict him and gave him five years of basically like, you know, cooperating with, you know, this scheme, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, well, to me, it's like you do a job, you get paid for it. Like,
yeah. Well, Garvey didn't, but Ingersoll did, and he actually initially he fled, but anyway, Ingersoll, he got a pardon from Tilden as governor because he turned state's evidence.
Oh.
And he sang like
Donnie
a bird.
Brasco.
Yeah, exactly. And so he got pardoned, right? So basically, in the meantime, like Tweed's lawyers are trying to figure out a way to get him out of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, Noah Davis, it was a miscarriage of justice that he gave you 12 years for something like this, right? The most you should get is a year, and with time served, you should be out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they take him over to, you know, Manhattan. You know, they're gonna try to get something going, and Tilden immediately, like, thinking quickly as governor is like, oh shit, Tweed's gonna try to get out. Here's a bunch of civil suits that you'll never be able to get out of. You know, so you're gonna owe the city, you know, millions of dollars. You know what I mean? This
you're
is
not
like
even
after,
gonna want to leave jail.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. So, so there was nothing they can do. Noah Davis, because you know his lawyers are questioning his judgment, slaps him with the $3 million bail. And he couldn't pay a $3 million bail. And by the way, that was the highest bail set for anyone in history at that time.
The 1870s, right? Like
1870s, yeah. And just impossible.
It's gonna be a lot of money
for him to pay. Yeah. So he went back to prison, but this time he went to the Ludlow Street jail, which is ironically enough a place that Tweed helped get built. And people even said, like, if Tweed knew he would be a resident there, he would have made it more accommodating. You know?
Put some frescoes on there.
Yeah, there you go. But something that they witnessed, you know, when they saw Tweed is that, like, oh, he has totally white hair now. Like, his beard came back, but it's totally white. He has a missing front tooth. Somehow that happened.
Somebody,
And he looked like he just wasn't doing well. Like, he could still stand up straight, but, like, it took him a while to get there. He was all hobbled,
it's like,
you know?
It's like,
Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, Harvey Weinstein.
There you go, yeah. Except that, I don't know.
Oh, that was no one,
like, cheering
show.
Harvey Weinstein. Like, even, like, whenever they moved Tweed around, there would still be people being like, there's the boss, you know?
Yeah. I
and
pretty much, I think...
like, wave at people, you know?
Yeah.
But at the Ludlow Street jail, they gave him like a double-sized room. It had carpets. Like he was allowed to like put up paintings and stuff like that. He had desks and things like this. It was pretty comfortable. Every once in a while, he could get like food ordered from like a nearby restaurant.
Okay, that's not so bad.
Uber Eats.
Well, and, like people would come down and visit him. They had like Thanksgiving with him a few times. And, like, people got pissed whenever they would hear about it. They'd be like, what? Why? You know, he's in jail, for God's sakes, you know?
Everybody in jail should be able to do this.
Yeah, and not everyone's able to do this, yeah.
Of course not.
But, like, he got in good with the warden, you know, and he was even allowed to leave sometimes. Like, take trips into Central Park and leave and, like, go around and all this stuff.
Fucking ridiculous.
Well, I thought you meant, like, he went to, like, Six Flags or something.
I mean, it may as well be, you know? And he was even at this time where, like the New York Times was even questioning whether or not he should be punished because he seemed like a scapegoat. Like, Sweeney, Connolly, you know, these guys... How come they weren't in jail too? Like he seemed like a fall guy. You know what I mean?
They either all go or none of them go. You know, I mean,
exactly.
They're all complicit. They all were on the take, and all of those other. Yeah,
he was like the brains. You know.
Yeah. Well, and so they all had. I mean, Tweed had to give the money back, right?
The thing is like with all these civil suits,
and they just bled him dry.
It bled him dry, and he moved his money around somewhere they couldn't touch it. But every single time, like, he didn't have any assets. He didn't have any money, you know, like, while he was in jail, really. You know what I mean? He had a certain amount to, like, you know, he had, like, you know, assistants that would go get him stuff, you know, while he was in jail. It was early December 4th, 1875. So he spent a few years in jail now. He was allowed to go home with his wife and kids to have dinner, which is super weird. Like, sometimes he was allowed to spend Christmas with them, you know? And so he goes over to his son's place. His wife is sick. She's going blind. And, you know, he's always being escorted by, you know, officials. And he goes up to, you know, to the upstairs to talk with his wife. And they're like, well, better be hitting the dusty trail. And his, like, son, William Jr., like, goes upstairs to get him. And he's, like, comes back downstairs, like, pale white. And he's like, he's not there.
Oh, no.
And, like, I guess he broke down and said, like, I'm ruined, because all of this has totally sullied the Tweed name. He could never do business in this town ever again. You know what I mean? And so, like...
Well, due to a direct consequence of his actions.
Exactly.
Well, and to top it all off, it sounds like his wife's pretty addicted to masturbation. The way that she's going blind.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, Tweed had something worked out with somebody, but he didn't tell his lawyers, he didn't tell anyone close to him. He had something worked out with some people on the inside, and he hopped in, like, he left a mark on, like, the step for, like, a certain time to say he was there, like, hopped in this carriage. They got out of New York, you know, and they actually went to the Jersey Palisades, which is not far from where Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr had their famous duel.
Ah, yes.
Which is funny, because, yeah, Aaron Burr, of course, was another Tammany man. So
it's like salmon swimming upstream.
Yeah. So he went up there and started hiding and, like, looking at the papers and watching New York just be set ablaze by this news that Tweed had escaped. You know what I mean? He put on a red wig. He shaved his beard. And he wore, like, gold-rimmed glasses. And his name was John Secor now.
I've never heard of this Tweed fellow, but he sure sounds dashing.
Yeah.
I imagine the red wig being a bowl cut.
That's good. My immediate was like a clown wig, but I knew that wasn't right. That's too silly.
I was just thinking of, like, those plastic, like, shiny wigs, but, like, they always stick out. Like, you can never, like, comb them right. They just stick straight out. You know? Well,
you get at one of those Halloween stores that only exists during Halloween.
Oh, yeah. Spirit of Halloween.
Yeah.
All sales are final.
Yeah.
Try to find us if you want to return it.
Yeah. They poof and they disappear
the whole place
in a cloud of smoke.
It's just an abandoned building now.
Yeah. Or like a cloud of bats or something. John Secor. He probably didn't like to know that his family was pretty much ruined by his escape, and that all of his lawyers were like, that's kind of the dumbest thing you could have done. We could have probably gotten you out of this, you know, but you ran away, you know. In May 1876, he went to, like, so he spent several months out on the Jersey Palisades. In May, he went to Staten Island and lived in a hut that was abandoned for a while. And every once in a while, he would go over to Brooklyn and, like, go around to the taverns to, like, have a good time, like, hoping nobody would recognize him and, like, his wig and everything.
Everyone's like, it's Tweed again in his ridiculous getup. Just play along.
Yeah.
Just let him have it.
Yeah. But then there was, I don't know, again, nobody really knows how he got all this together, but there was a schooner at an appointed time that showed up, and he boarded the schooner with a man named William Hunt. And we don't know who William Hunt was. Some people speculate it was his nephew, maybe it was his son-in-law that married his daughter at that Trinity church.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
Big old fancy wedding.
Yeah, but he agreed to take him through Florida, to Cuba, and then to Spain, so he could flee, right? they stopped at a lighthouse. They hung out with some lighthouse keepers. That's kind of funny. But yeah, then they landed in Santa Ana de Cuba, where they didn't want to let them come in because they didn't have visas, and they had fake passports. Well, they didn't know they were fake, but they were issued in a certain place, and they were like, but you don't have visas, why are you here, what's going on? And like, they're starting to like talk to each other and be like, what the fuck?
And this is clearly a wig.
Yeah, and like, the big news is that like Boss Tweed escaped, and like, Cuba at this time has its own thing going on. And like, every once in a while, like, adventurers would come over from, the States, and they would like fight, with like the rebels and stuff, be adventurers. They actually called them filibusters. These type of like, gentleman soldier, soldier of fortune kind of guys.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure they're just mercenaries. Mm-hmm. But like, it's or mercenaries for fun. Yeah,
because they wanted the glory, right?
Yeah.
He started learning Spanish while I was there. He probably spilled the beans to like one guy's wife that he was like this awesome guy back in New York.
He's like one of the wives he was banging,
He's like, oh no, I got so good at Spanish I accidentally incriminated myself.
Exactly.
He showed up and he was living on a goat farm and with this beautiful young Cuban woman.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. To put it into perspective, this is when Custer's last stand happens as well.
It's crazy,
the country's centennial,
it would be.
This is during the Tilden Hayes election, the really contested Tilden Hayes election. Mm-hmm. And like, Boss Tweed, like watching this happen, I bet he's just eating that up, that Tilden is like, he's like, why isn't Tilden doing this and this? And I can just see it happening. Yeah. They called it the era of Twitter. Yeah, they called it the era of graft, because they found out that, the president...
Everyone was on the fucking take. Yeah.
Everyone was doing it, the president included, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the Grant administration, knowing that they're not going to be reelected or anything, they catch word that there's this American in Cuba without any papers. And they're like, And they're like, well, is he like is he a filibuster? And they're like, no, he's not. No. Like, this is an old man, and he looks rough, Yeah. And they're like, I wonder if it's Tweed. And they're like, I don't know, I think it might be, you know what I mean? Yeah. They're like, Grant is straight up like, call the Spanish government. I know we don't have any extradition laws with them, but see if they'll work with us. Stop that man. And bring him to me, you know what I mean? And just before, like, I think Tweed knew that the shit was like the hammer was coming down, because like he got on a boat immediately and left with William Hunt. And just as they were confirming that John Secor is in fact William Tweed, and so like they sent cables ahead of Tweed to Barcelona and to Spain, because they didn't know where he's gonna land. But they were like to Spain, and they were like, one of your ships, it's named it had this super common name, like it was like Santa Maria or some shit, and they're like, dude, we have like 60 boats named
the
that,
Pollyanna,
and they're like, well, be on alert, we're looking for this guy. And they're like, okay. And like, they're like, well, how are we gonna know that it's him? How are we gonna identify it? Well, they identified him with one of Thomas Nast's cartoons.
Oh no. Oh boy.
The second they pulled up, the governor comes onto the ship and goes, Tweed, you're coming with me.
Show me your thumbs, motherfucker.
Yeah. And he's like, oh fuck. So like they toss him and William Hunt in this like cell. Tweed, I don't know, he was a smooth operator, because he was still able to like finagle like some beers while they were in there. And like Grant kind of wanted to get Tweed. He's like, wouldn't it be funny if I got Tweed and Tilden didn't? Because like they were saying that like you and Tweed you guys were in it from the beginning. You were a Tammany man. You're totally corrupt too. Well, and Tilden was like, I've always been against him. I went into his own wigwam and told him what for. And they're like, shut up.
Yeah, he did leave crying.
Yeah, and so like Grant was like, it would be so funny if I brought him back. It was my administration that brought him back, you know, and not Tilden. Because Tilden is almost happy that Tweed's not there, you know, to talk just, like, with all this stuff he's going. You know,
it's in his best interest to keep him at arm's length.
Yeah. So, like they ask William Hunt. They're like, because what the Spanish and the Americans do is like they take two warships and like they do the prisoner exchange, right? They hand over Tweed, and like the captain of the Spanish ship, he goes, "Now here's your option, dude. I can either hand you over to the American authorities and they'll do what they do, or you can just leave into Spain." And he's like, "See ya." You know, he left into Spain, never to be heard from ever again. You know, no one knows who he was, why he helped him.
William Hunt?
Yeah, William Hunt. Yeah. No idea who he is. Yeah, which I think is interesting.
D.B. Cooper.
What if he? Yeah, I was gonna say, what if he's like a time traveler,
right?
Or like Samuel Beckett from
there you go,
from the Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, yeah.
Actually, no, that doesn't make sense because he always leapt into an actual person.
Oh.
He didn't just show up.
Maybe he leapt into it like an actual person who was like a nobody, and he's like, "I'm using this body to save Tweed."
Yeah.
Or else
I might never find my way. I might never find my way home.
They abruptly cancel his show, and they don't even spell his name right on the hastily written end title card. I don't know if you guys know that story.
Is that what happened? That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He did never make it home.
He didn't. Tweed, it was a grueling trip back by sea. He actually hated being on boats, even though he had two, like, luxury yachts. He got seasick very easily and did not like being on boats. He got seasick. He was like, the only thing these guys put on their food is garlic, and I hate it. And every bite of food has garlic in it. And it's like, strong disagree, but okay.
Yeah. Because of vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want them in the mix?
Delicious.
Yeah.
He's like, it's more fun when you're puking on your own boat, not somebody else's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The New York Sun actually called the whole thing a put-up job to make the Republican Party look better.
Mm.
They were like, was Tweed ever actually missing? It's like, shut up, dude. When they did like bring him in, like crowds gathered to see it. You know, like people were like looking through like binoculars and stuff. To see like the boss come back. You know, and yeah, they were like, oh, he walks with a cane. He's lost at least 100 pounds. Yeah, he was way skinnier. He did not look good. He'd been like out there for like 9 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, super haggard. They took him back to the Ludlow street jail, where they looked at him and they're like, yeah, he's pretty rough looking. And now he knew he was going to be in there forever until he died, you know? And he was like, you know, my last Hail Mary pass to get out of here. What if I told you everything? And they're like, I'm listening. He's like, if I tell you everything, I name names, I do everything, will you let me live out the last of my days with my family? And like his lawyers, because he had to talk between go-betweens, right? And his lawyers were like talking, you know, they talked with Tilden about it, and Tilden's like, what is he going to say? And they're like, we're not going to tell you right now. Like, we're going to make the deal or not, you know?
Yeah.
Tilden refused, but the thing is he lost the presidential election. There was a new governor, one of Tilden's men, but a new governor. He was receptive to the deal. So they started writing shit down, you know? People knew this was happening and coming out. There was something that happened, though, that sort of gutted the whole situation. And that was that, meanwhile, Peter Sweeney was talking with them as well. And he was like, he knew that, A, his brother was dead, and his brother had his estate with all of his money in it, basically.
Yeah.
And he goes, if I come down to stand for the civil suit, will you grant me immunity? And they were like, sure. So he came down, and he settled for $400,000 outside of court from his dead brother's estate, and went back to France scot-free.
Son of
damn
a
it.
bitch.
Yeah, and what it did is it totally gutted the whole point of Tweed confessing everything, because they wanted Sweeney. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They wanted like the big fish, you know, and he talked anyway. He said, you know, because he wanted to be out, so he talked anyway. He named names. He talked about bribing judges, bribing Republicans, senators, all this shit. You know, strong arm politics, the way he'd stuff ballot boxes, the way he'd buy all of this stuff, the way he would buy up like in a road where he knew that a sewer pipe was going to be built. He would buy up that chunk and then sell it for way more than it was worth just to make a buck off of it. And then like the scheming operations and all that stuff. He told them all of it. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, all these people around are like telling the papers, you know, William Tweed has always been a liar. You know, like Okie Hall is like, no, I was exonerated. I was acquitted. I had nothing to do with it. He's a liar. And like, he's now named as like one of the main people of the Tweed ring. You know?
Yeah. Who did the people believe, though? I'm curious.
Depends on who you ask.
It's probably all over the place.
The New York Times, surprisingly enough, they thought that Okie Hall was telling the truth. And, you know, if you talk to maybe like some poor people, they would have said Tweed, you know?
Yeah, because he was really a champion of the common man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We'll kind of get into that. But he sang, and basically the governor, his name was Fairchild, he said, I had no agreement with you to let you out for this information. And they threw him back in jail.
Fuck yeah.
So he went back to jail anyway.
I'm just gonna say, fuck that guy. But yeah.
Well, Okie Hall.
They all should have gone down.
Oh yeah. Okie Hall being totally exonerated, he actually went on. He had kind of a second life. He wrote a play called, weirdly enough, The Crucible. Not the Arthur Miller.
Not the Crucible, but
not the Arthur Miller Crucible that we've all read. No.
Yeah.
It was a different one that he wrote called The Crucible. It was about an innocent man that was accused of theft, and he played the main character when it premiered.
That makes sense.
It was a giant flop.
That's insane.
Yeah, he was a lawyer after that. He defended a notorious anarchist Emma Goldman in court. She said that he was a champion of free speech, which hurt his career even further. Honestly, the whole thing with the Tweed ring and Emma Goldman, it ruined his political career. He could never really run for political office ever again.
Well, that's good.
He died. He died of heart disease on October 7th, 1898 in New York City. He's actually buried at the Trinity Cemetery, located at 155th Street and Broadway in Manhattan. He was 72. Sweeney, he stayed in France. He moved around a little bit, but he actually died at the home of his son in New York City much later, August 30th, 1911. He was pretty old. Richard B. Connolly probably got the worst out of them all. When he went to Egypt, he lost a shit ton of money on some shaky investments. And he moved to France and Switzerland and never really recouped his money. And he died of Bright's disease, still a fugitive from justice.
What is Bright's disease? Do we have anything on that?
I do. Bright's disease, it is a kidney disease described in modern medicine as acute or chronic nephritis. It is characterized by swelling and the presence of albumin in the urine. It was frequently accompanied by high blood pressure and heart disease. It's a kidney disease, basically.
I have so hear me out. Curse of the Mummy. I mean, things go south as soon as he moves to Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not as soon. He did flee a country.
Yeah, that's a good point. Didn't help going to Egypt.
Tweed's son-in-law, oddly enough, he was part of like a really well-to-do family in New Orleans.
No.
He was struck by lightning, and that's how he died.
Well.
Yeah.
I'm giving Zeus that one.
Yeah. You know that daughter's just like,
I can't catch a break.
I can't catch a break. My dad ends up being like the biggest criminal in New York City history, and my husband got struck by lightning.
United States history?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, boss William Meager Tweed died in the Ludlow Street Jail on April 12th, 1878, from severe pneumonia.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't there long.
He was buried in Brooklyn's Greenwood Cemetery, and when he died, the then mayor Smith Ely, he actually would not allow the flag at City Hall, Tweeds City Hall, to be flown at half staff.
Yeah, fuck him.
They didn't want too many people celebrating, his life.
Yeah, a lifetime criminal.
Yeah. Tammany Hall, after Tweed was gone, they had kind of an interim Grand Sachem, but the Grand Sachem after Tweed, his name was Honest John Kelly. Because they were like trying to repair their image, So they got Honest John, to be the head of Tammany Hall.
He's got to be honest.
Yeah, that's it. It's in his name.
Yeah.
That's the reason why if I ever have another kid, I'm gonna name him Not Murdery O.J. Armentrout. Because if you put the thing that they're not, then people won't associate it with the thing that it is.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna be
Johnny,
like,
not
the
a
murdery
rapist.
one.
No, I'm called that because I've never done it. I'm not a rapist.
Yeah.
Don't isolate that, Chris.
Now, was Tweed and Tammany mobilizing and wielding the Irish vote as a weapon, or was it political representation when there wasn't any? These are questions. Was this money? Yeah, it was graft, but this money went to poor people still. Coal for the winter times, orphanages, poorhouses, things like this, in a time where public services simply did not exist? Or is it the wholesale fucking robbery of a town, of a city?
Little column A, little column B.
Yeah, I would say this knob does have a 5 on it.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a 10 and a 1. And I feel like you could just move it to 5, and then the poor people have...
Don't you feel that, like, when people, like, want you to have a strong opinion on, like, historical matters, sometimes they end up this way, where it's like, I can see why people would like Tweed, especially if you were among the poor immigrant community. I would have liked Tweed if I was among the poor immigrant community.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Well, yeah.
And you got to remember, when the United States throws the book at somebody, they do it because they fucked with their money.
Yeah,
because the United States only cares about one thing, and one thing only, and that's money. And if you think they care about anything else, it's a smokescreen.
Yeah, no, totally. The whole, like, the rich and powerful are racist is, like, the biggest smokescreen of them all, because they're not that racist. But if they can keep you racist while they steal your wallet,
yeah,
then
they're picking everyone's pocket.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And if you can divert attention away, you know what I mean? It's like a magician, grabbing a hold of your gold watch and being like, look at this right here, and then pick your wallet. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, I've said it recently on the podcast, but I think, the fighting against Roe versus Wade, that's all that was. I think it was just to keep people scared and angry.
Yeah, it's cynical power grab is what
and vote against their best interests.
By the way, when they asked Tweed what his religion was, I mean, this is just so telling. Because remember, he was really in with the Irish Catholics, but his family was Protestant. When they asked him what his religion was, he said none.
Yeah. Well,
these are people that are actually, like, and even now people say, like, oh, people of Tammany were pretty much devoid of ideology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they didn't have a unifying ideology. They didn't care about that. They cared about power and money and how to, like, how do we control shit because we want to be the ones that control shit.
And they stood for nothing else.
Yeah.
If you're the one who controls shit, you can make the most money.
Yeah. and you can have the nicest life, right?
Mm-hmm.
That shit gives me anxiety.
Ironically, isn't that a criticism that Alexander Hamilton had of Aaron Burr?
Yeah.
And he didn't stand for anything?
Tammany. Yeah, that's what it's all for. Yeah, exactly. Honestly, to this day, Tweed is a symbol. If you say Boss Tweed or Tweed, people know you're talking about corrupt city politics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, even his family, like, after they put him away finally, they moved. They left the country and changed their names. Like, they changed their name to Weed, actually.
I was going to make a joke.
I know, right? I wonder. No,
we're farmers. Farmers, man.
Yeah, they've never heard that joke before.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting, Eastern family with the last name Weed. Makes me wonder. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the story of probably the most corrupt politician in United States history.
Mm-hmm. At least at that time.
Probably ever, honestly.
I was just referencing Donald Trump. I don't think he's as smart as Tweed was, though.
There's no way he came up with a plan to steal billions out of our treasure. And, like, the thing is, to them, millions was billions, right?
Yeah.
So,
sure.
like, to now, like, to have somebody go, they've stolen trillions out of the, like, we'd be like, what? Trillions?
Yeah.
How much is a trillion? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's an unfathomable amount of money. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it would be like, though, today. You know?
Yeah. I think, the previous administration's idea of stealing is just being like, and then we'll have the peace talk. We'll have it at my golf course, and then I get that money when I'm out.
It's way stupider. It's way dumber than their plan. Like, even the Kenneth Ackerman, the author of the book I read for this amazing book, by the way, he was like, it's hard not to admire how crazy this plan
Absolutely.
is.
Like, you read stuff about the, like, January 6th, hearings, and you're just like, how stupid are these people?
So stupid. And, like, everything that came out of that man's mouth and out of like, that administration's mouthpiece, his mouth, I guess, was the dumbest shit I've ever heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The stupidest administration we've ever had, bar none. I can promise you that.
Oh, I think so.
You know what I mean? The biggest idiots we've ever had running this country. I think.
I agree.
Rant over.
Well, let's just knock on wood on that, because
yeah, I don't want that happening again.
Yeah.
I'd rather have I don't know, inept.
Yeah.
Someone we can all complain about, just sort of like from time to time. Than like,
I like a boring old codger that it doesn't get anything done, and just everyone's like, he's just
boring. Except lets shit go, but he did let a lot of shit go by the wayside, like heavyweight and whatnot.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not gonna get into it.
Yeah. Alrighty, everybody, that was our episode. That was our series on Boss Tweed, also known as Boss Hog, and what else did I?
Boss Skaggs.
Boss Skaggs, we did, yeah.
I go by Boss Hog because because like I said, he wants to control the elections, or no, he doesn't care if you control the elections as long as he gets to control the erections.
Yeah,
Boss Hog.
That's how Boss Hog felt.
All
his crooked
Tweed.
All his crooked Hazard County schemes were to get full, harder elections, longer lasting.
Them Duke boys.
Yeah. It's symbolism.
He's sick of seeing Bo and Luke Duke front page news having the best erections in town.
I am Christopher Whedon, and I'm a history boy.
All right.
I am Tyler. I am Tyler, also Boss Hog Armentrout. I'm a history boy. And if you like this episode, like this series, like this show, hop on over to historyboyspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know how you feel. You can also leave us a 5-star review on any of the podcast things. thumbs up if you're one of those rock stars who listens to us on YouTube. And if you really love us, head on over to our Patreon and sign up for as little as $1 a month. $1 a month gives you access to the Discord. We chit chat, share pictures. You get all kinds of cool stuff. $5 a month, you get the shout out on the episode, and in addition to that, you get access to our Patreon only show for the first 30 days it's out. $10 a month, you get access to the vault, plus everything else that I kind of listed before that. And as always, the most important thing you could do to show us that you like the show is listen to it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I am Jerry Nash, your humble history boy. As always, thank you so much for listening. Yes, we love all of our listeners, our Patreon listeners, and even the ones that never say anything, our secret listeners. We love you too. So I want to share some news, dear listener. The results are in from our listener poll, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We put up some listener submissions and had other listeners vote on that on our Discord. And the winner is, drum roll please, the annexation of Hawaii. So that's what we're going to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited. This is one I've been planning on doing for a while, and that was submitted by our dear listener Caleb. That was his submission. So thank you, Caleb. I'm glad we're gonna get to this one. This will be one of those eye-opening ones that they don't really teach in schools because it makes people look bad.
You mean by people, you mean the government?
The government, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It makes the whole system pretty much look bad. So strap in for that one. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Let's see, Mr. Tyler.
Love you, bye.